Okay, there we go. Okay, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to School Librarians and Advocate for Harris virtual event. Thank you so much for joining KC and I. My name is Dr. Corinthia Price. I am the CEO and founder of Workforce Career Readiness.
And my name is Casey Boyd. I am the creator of Boss Librarian PD. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you. So, why are we here? What is the purpose of us forming this virtual event? Well, the first thing, we want to hold elected officials accountable for the actions they portray during the campaign. We want to hold politicians accountable for the promises they make to school librarians. We are fighting for our profession and livelihood, and we are advocating for school librarian issues. That's why we are here. We are fighting so that our positions are not within the grants, within grants and loss of within grants, and where we lose our job. We are fighting to exist. We are fighting for our professions. We are tired of being unemployed. We are tired for people being in our positions who do not have a degree. We are fighting for our livelihood. Next slide.
And so let's talk about some voting resources. I am really enthusiastic about these voting resources, and I suggest that you do a screenshot, take a quick screenshot, and also we will be providing these resources at the end of this presentation. But I was on another call and I learned about vote.gov. I went on to vote.gov and I just wanted to check and make sure that I was registered. Sure enough, I was. It took less than a minute for the system to generate my information and to kick back that I'm registered in my county, my city, and my state. Now, let me say this. Voter suppression is real. It's very real.
It's
So
very real.
there are areas of the country where voter suppression is more prevalent than it is maybe in your town. I recommend that you not only use this for yourself, but also pass it on to friends and family that live in other parts of the country because they can really benefit from this. Now, the next one is votefromabroad.org. Votefromabroad.org was another one that I learned by attending another session for Vote for Kamala. And we have people that live overseas, sometimes through the military, or either sometimes they're just working. And one of the things that helps with Vote from Abroad is that they're able to vote, while they're overseas. So this is a system that helps them vote by mail. You can request your ballot and you can vote for your elected officials very simply by contacting the company. And I want to let Corinthia talk about I Will Vote a little bit more in depth because she's a little closer to that one than I am.
I Will Vote. Within this website, you can input your town, your state, and you can find out where you can vote within that perimeter. That's basically it, where you can vote. It also gives you background information on candidacy, and it also lets you know if you're registered. Now, I know there's some situations where college students, I'm not particularly sure if college students can vote within their state that they're attending school, but I believe if you're registered to vote, you can vote within the state that college students are registered to attend. I know for instance, one of my daughters is in Pennsylvania, and they suggested that she votes in Pennsylvania versus New York. So it all depends upon the college and your state. So make sure you go to these websites. I am putting the links in the chat so everyone can be aware and find some more information. So Casey, do you want to talk about introduce Amanda with her video? You're on mute.
I'm so happy that that Amanda Jones is able to join us this evening. Unfortunately, Amanda is on book tour. We're so happy for her, right? And by her being on her book tour, she was not able to join us. So, what did Amanda do, being the great person that she is? She provided a wonderful video for us to play in her absence. So, what I'm going to do is play a video that Amanda sent to share with you because this is wonderful what she has to say, sharing with the community about all of the things that she's experienced and how she wants you to get active. Okay, so I just want to make sure that everybody can see this, and I want to make sure my sound comes through without any problems. There we go. Let me know if you cannot hear the sound, and I will restart it again, okay?
Hello, everyone. Although I couldn't be here with you tonight, it is an honor and privilege to be able to present this recording for school librarians and advocates for Harris. My name is Amanda Jones. I am a school librarian from Louisiana. I'm a 24-year educator. I am the 2021 Librarian of the Year as presented by School Library Journal and the 2020 Louisiana School Librarian of the Year. For the past 2 years, I've been under attack from extremists in Louisiana who are trying to eradicate stories, authors, people, books, and our libraries. It's got to stop. It is something that is happening all across the nation and something that I believe will soon change with the right president. That is why I am voting for presidential candidate Kamala Harris. What you might not know about me is I am actually a registered Republican. I have a history of voting Republican, although in the past few years, I have obviously not voted that way. What I stand for is a country that looks to include everyone from all walks of life, no matter their race, gender, socioeconomic status, sexual identity, religion, or lack of religion thereof. And what I've seen in the past few years has disheartened me. I've seen anger, lies, hatefulness posed at some of our historically marginalized communities. I've seen attempts to eradicate libraries, both school and public, and I'm tired of it. I want to go to a place of joy, kindness, love, and acceptance. And I think the only way to go forward in our country and achieve those goals is by voting for presidential candidate Harris. I have a lot to say about the other candidate. I will not. I think he who shall not be named doesn't even need a mention here. But what I will say is that last week I was very frightened by statements from Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance when he stated that people are trying to place sexually explicit books in toddlers' libraries. On the flip side, we have a Vice Presidential candidate, Tim Walz, who not only stands up for the communities I love, but also stands up for libraries when he signed an anti-book banning bill in his state of Minnesota. He signed a bill in Minnesota declaring that all library decisions, purchasing decisions, should be made by licensed media specialists. That right there says all I need to know about our vice presidential candidate and adds to what I already know about our presidential candidate, Kamala Harris. I hope that you will join me in voting for Kamala Harris this November for a better future. That's the way I'm voting, not only for myself, but for my daughter, for women, for school librarians, for authors, for the LGBTQ community, and for the BIPOC communities. Together, we can join together and we can make change with the right vote. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for that.
what I would like to say about Amanda and her talk is that Amanda, first of all, is busy as all get out, as everybody in this room is busy. And she just took the time out to support. And that's one thing that we do appreciate is that, we have to support, but also we have to tell our stories. Our
Yes,
stories are very important. Our stories are so important because we need to define our narrative. If we don't define our narrative, others will define it for us. And that
yes.
leads us to our next slide, which is talking about the different organizations that support voting.
Now, these organizations I find to be very friendly to school librarians. So you might be sitting at home wondering, what should I do next? So these list of organizations, we suggest that school librarians or people in your family or community should start getting involved. One of the organizations I like is Fair Fight, and Fair Fight was started by Stacey Abrams in Georgia. So she started this organization because it was voter suppression in Georgia. So she started going out into the community, having voter registration drive, just rallying people up to start to vote. And so this organization is very strong one. The next one is the Next Gen. And the Next Gen is, like it says, the next generation is out there going knocking on doors, they're doing phone banks, they're trying to get their generation, which is I believe is the 18 through 25-year age group, to get out to vote. Rock the Vote, that's the musical organization. Those are the musical executive who is out there pushing voting rights, going out there, registering people. So these are some of the organizations that we feel that are friendly to school librarians. All you have to do is just go onto the website. I will put the links in the chat, sign up, get out there and do something. Let's go. Let's mobilize. Casey, you can now introduce the next two speakers.
Okay, if you can make me host, that would be great.
Me?
Yeah, it swapped over on us.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, it did.
Okay. I don't know how I did that. It says I'm viewing your. I can't do that. It won't let me.
Wow, this is interesting. You cannot start, I can't start my video. So, okay, so we're gonna just go on and move on because having a little problems with Zoom right now. But you know what? We're just gonna move right along. Our next speaker is Dorcas Han. That's Dorcas Han. And Dorcas, I want to pull you up from a panelist. Let's see. There we go. I see you, Dorcas. All right, Dorcas, if you would please just start speaking and turn on your camera.
I cannot turn on my camera because the host has stopped it, it tells me.
There we go, reclaim host. There we go. Now, all right, let's try it again.
Nope. It's still giving me the same message.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, speaking, you mean? Oh,
There
there
you
it is.
go. There's your camera. Go ahead.
I must have bumped it twice. Anyway, hi, everybody. I don't know why I'm not on camera, but we'll move on. From where I sit in Houston, Texas, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are essential to the survival of both public schools and their libraries. Since the June 2023 state takeover of the Houston ISD, I've spent many hours a week fighting to restore the elected leadership of our local Houston school district so that a superintendent more friendly to campus libraries can be hired and we can begin the hard road back to a reality that offers all students K-12 full access to strong school libraries. Our libraries are only one element of a complicated morass of issues threatening the existence of local public schools. We work with a variety of local organizations fighting for a generation of K-12 students. Eliminating school librarians is a form of book banning. Thank you, Washington Library Association. Book bans are a whole other can of worms that school librarians face. Voting on every race with awareness of that issue will make a difference. Houston is one of too many localities, and we just heard from Amanda, too many localities facing a school board and censorship issues. The opposing party at all levels opposes public schools and libraries in so many ways, but everyone here today knows this truth already. What do we say to our neighbors who still think the Republican Party has the best answers? First, Harris has always espoused a platform of democracy with education as its bedrock. She constantly speaks of making a positive impact on working families, the families that historically rely on public schools to grow their children out of poverty. And now we add Tim Waltz to the ticket, an educator, high school social studies no less. He truly understands the values of libraries as represented by the Minnesota law Amanda mentioned. He speaks our language. This election is also an opportunity to build our ecosystems. Perhaps you haven't followed the ecosystem idea. A library ecosystem is the interconnected network of all types of libraries, library workers, volunteers, and associations that provide and facilitate library services. Our ecosystems support libraries by engaging businesses, nonprofits, any organization with specific information, as well as our colleagues in public and academic libraries. I don't know of any organization that does not have, quote, specific information needs. These ecosystem coalitions allow us to share information with each other, pivot for action as needed to develop strong messaging. At the same time, we engage with people and groups around us to better understand the issues and encourage their support. Kamala and Tim allow us to open a conversation across our ecosystem that focuses on local needs for strong public schools with strong campus libraries. At the same time, we consider with ecosystem colleagues the federal policies that will support these local needs. These ecosystems will support us beyond this election. We know the fight for school librarians won't be won in one day with one political candidacy. Remember that all politics are local. Kamala and Tim can lead on overview policies, and they do. But we need them to excite voters to go to the polls so that they can vote all the way down the ballot. Whether you have school board seats or state legislators, even city council seats or a school bond on the ballot, you need to get every single voter to the polls. They can't stop with the top race. Change happens from the bottom up. It's all slow, except when we remember the loud voices trying to drag us into the muck, and then it seems way too fast. Many school librarians face legal consequences if they campaign for a candidate during school hours. However, educating students and families about the importance of voting is entirely legal and essential. Get out the vote. This election will hinge on getting voters to the polls who may not vote regularly. The enthusiasm you encourage in your students, regardless of their age, for getting out the vote, for pushing their parents, older siblings, and neighbors to the polls, has the potential to win this presidency for Kamala and the rest of us. Beyond school hours, you have the same rights as every other citizen. Use them. Voter registration, block walking, the more personal, the better. As an ecosystem coalition of smart school librarians knowledgeable on ballot issues, we understand local races and will educate our broad coalition to vote in the best interests of school libraries locally, as well as at the state and federal levels. And we will bring everyone we know, neighbors, colleagues, relatives, to help Harrison Waltz win. Kamala can, and we can help her. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorcas, for such a powerful and strong message. Oh,
Thank you.
goodness. Yes, thank you. Oh, goodness. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. And what you're doing in Houston, Texas. Thank you so much for standing up for those librarians in those communities and those schools.
Okay, our next speaker that's coming up is Christina Holzweiss. And Christina Holzweiss has done a lot of work around the advocacy for school librarians in her local community, especially around certifications. So I want you to pay very close attention to some of the things that Christina is saying, because this very interesting and it will inspire you to do the same. Christina, I'm going to temporarily make you the host.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Casey?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. So I want to thank all of you for attending today, and I especially want to thank in public Casey for being my mentor throughout this process. Whenever I felt that I was hitting another wall in my advocacy journey, Casey was there to lift me up and be in my corner and push me out into that middle of the ring again. So I want to thank you, Casey. So I want to tell you a little story. When I was growing up, I was my mom was a single mom. She had divorced, and my grandparents were immigrants. My grandmother had never gone to school. My grandfather went up to fourth grade, and they raised me basically while my mom was working her two jobs. And every time the bookmobile came stopped right in front of my grandparents' house, that was my joy. That library, that bookmobile when it came. My grandfather couldn't read any book on that bookmobile. He couldn't read anything that was not in Ukrainian. And my grandmother couldn't read a thing. But he gave me tomatoes from the garden. She gave me roses. And she said, and they say, give them to the librarian on that bookmobile, because they respected education. They respected knowledge, and I was their hope. They came here for a better life for my mother and my aunt, and I was supposed to be the hope for them. And so libraries are hope. They're hope for every person. It is the largest classroom of the school. All students, regardless of their socioeconomic background, their abilities, their identities, their primary language, but regardless of everything, that is where they can all come. And it is the place of hope. It is the level playing ground. It is the place where everything can begin. So in New York State, elementary school librarians are not state mandated. That means K through 6, those schools do not require school librarians. School libraries, which could be just a book room, but not school librarians. So in my school district, which is very unusual, they have a 6th grade building on its own. I was a middle school librarian for years, and mostly your 6th grade is lumped with 7th and 8th grade in New York. So even though not necessarily 6th grade is considered elementary, but elementary school librarians were hired for preps. But in my school district, the 6th grade was vacant for a decade because there was a loophole. They were considered elementary. They were not considered junior high. And I fought and I taught people. People don't know. Your taxpayers don't know. Your parents don't know. They all assume everyone has the same as everyone else in every district, in every town across America. And that's not true. It is not equitable. when schools do not have certified school librarians trained in information literacy, collection development, educational technology. We are curriculum leaders. When a child does not have access to a school librarian, there is a question of equity and accessibility. You could put books on those shelves, you could put databases on the computer, but that does not mean it is equitable. You need to call them out. You need to stand up. You need to support the librarians and the library programs in the districts where you are a taxpayer, because those librarians, for the most part, can't speak. That is their job. And where you work is not exactly, where, you're not a taxpayer, you are an employee. So you need to start speaking up in your towns. You need to advocate for school libraries and certified school librarians for all students. Classroom teachers are not qualified. I was an English teacher. I taught my students how to research, but I did not, excuse me, I did not know everything. And I became a better English teacher when I went to library school. And just because I was doing it in my classroom as an English teacher did not mean that other students were getting it in other classrooms. That was not my job. That's not anyone else's job. That's a school librarian's job, and everyone has to have a part of that. I was alone. I was alone working with Casey on my side and some people rooting for me in the background. But you know what? When I had to stand up at the school board meeting, I was alone. Community action changes the system. You need to speak for the person next to you, behind you, and in front of you. But when we all rally together, and especially this year during this monumental time in our history, community action changes the system. And each one of us is so important in our own communities. And when we come together as individuals in our communities, and our communities come together, and our organizations come together, we can change the system.
Yes.
So that is all I have to say. Basically, we need to come together. You need to speak out. You need to let people know. Your parents don't understand. And it should not be at the whim of the superintendent and their beliefs, or the school board and their beliefs. The school board, for the most part, are not educators. Yes, they are thinking about the community. They're thinking about taxes. They're thinking about other things, and they have a lot on their plate, but they're not educators. Schools must think of our students first. Libraries are hope for all students. Our schools for hope for all students. And community action changes the system. We must come together.
Christina, I think you just created a couple of bumper stickers with those last 3 points. I think
Yes.
you need to talk to Demco.
I will speak to them.
We must come together.
That was
Let's
on
come
point.
together.
I love that. I love that. Okay, thank you so much. And see,
Thank you.
it is that really hit home. That hit home because we've got to stop feeling afraid. Um,
Yes.
I'm afraid every day in Washington, D.C., with some of the things that I'm dealing with and about to go through this year. We have to take a stand, and we have to, as Christina has said, we must educate the community, because oftentimes the community does not know what is going on. They just put their trust in the school system and say, okay, they're going to do the best thing. But in some cases, they don't. They don't.
And we have to get out of our comfort zone. We have to get out the library and go out and advocate for ourselves and for the profession. Because if we don't, nobody else is going to pick up that cross.
Okay. All right. Continue on.
Okay, so these are books that we generated for this group to teach voting, and elections. Several books are for pre-K through 5, and then some of them are for high schools. And I think we need to start teaching this in our libraries, just so that children can get an overview of what the election process is. You'll be surprised that people don't know that it's not the popular vote that gets the president elected. It's the Electoral College. So on the website that I'll be uploading in the message, I have several lesson plans for various grades so that you'll be able to teach students about the election process. What's the role of a president? What's the role of the vice president? What's the role of the executive branch? All of this information will be posted in the chat with the website where you can download and get all the lesson plans that you need to teach about the voting process and the elections. Casey, you can introduce the next two speakers.
Okay. Our next speaker is Cecily Lewis. Cecily is an author, and she's one of many authors that is on this panel tonight. And she is also a former SLJ, School Library Journal, School Librarian of the Year. So Cecily, I'm going to make you a temporary host, and you can turn on your camera and you can begin. There we
Casey,
go. How you
can
doing?
you let me chat? Oh, okay.
Go
Hello,
ahead, Cecily.
everybody. Thank you, Casey and Dr. Price and all the esteemed panelists here. I'm so honored to be in this number. And I have to piggyback on Christina and just say thank you, Casey, for all you're doing for librarians and all that you have done in this space to create space for all of us. And tonight, this topic is so timely, and I couldn't think of a better place to be to advocate and to talk about something that is so important to me. And I just want to encourage all the librarians on here to vote like your library depends on it, because guess what? It does. There's been recent legislation in Georgia, if you've been following the news, where books have been taken out of the libraries. Recently, last week, I think 13 books in Cobb County were removed. And also recently, our superintendent of Georgia decided that they were no longer going to fund African American studies. And we came together, we along with local reporters, and we spoke out about it, and we used our voice to make change. And luckily, we were able to get that repealed, and now it is funded in Georgia schools. One of the things that I've done in my school, and I thought about what Kamala Harris said, and that's why I'm wearing my Read Something, Do Something shirt. Kamala Harris said that her mother taught her never to complain about injustice, but do something about it. And I want to tell you briefly what I did about it in the past couple of years, what I've been doing about it. I started the Read, Register, Vote challenge at my school, requiring kids to read, get registered, and to vote. And they answered the call by creating social media posts, educating fellow students about voting, reading books about voting, writing book reviews, volunteering to be poll workers, making videos, TikToks, and volunteering and doing so much more. And I think this was the best way to get them on board. And everybody had an opportunity. Even if you were unable to register to vote, there was a place for the students to be a part of the conversation. And so I was so honored to do this work, and I'm proud to say that we increased the amount of voters in our school and were recognized with a visit from my forever First Lady, Michelle Obama. So I want to encourage you all today to focus on our young voters. This is a very important election, but this is not the only election. Our local elections are so important. And so to continue this conversation, not just around presidential elections, some things that I recommend you do. Many people think, well, I work in elementary school, they can't vote, but that's our future. So you can hold a mock election in your school to let them understand the process of you can, and for you people who work at the high school like me, hosting voter registrations constantly throughout the year and educating students in a nonpartisan way about voting. And my favorite thing, creating a library voting book display, which I've done. And I mean, it's just a great way to spark conversation and to get kids reading. And make sure your family is registered to vote. If you can't do anything else, if you're like, oh no, I can't do this in my school, focus on your family and your friends. Send a text message, a group text message when you get off this call and say, hey, are you registered to vote? And also, if you're like me, I'm a one-woman show in the library, no support, and you can't do it. You're like, I can't get out, I can't do that. partner with these local organizations. There are sororities, fraternities, nonprofit organizations who would love to come in. If your school will approve, they will come in and they will do all of the work for you. And vote. Are you registered to vote? And make sure you go and vote. And like Casey said, check in that status, because we do know voter suppression is real and people's names are miraculously just falling off the list. So with this election, there's so much on at stake here. We've got Supreme Court justices that may be appointed under this legislation. We can finally have a chance to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. And Kamala said, never let anyone tell you who you are. You show them who you are. So librarians, I'm telling you, let's stop letting people tell us who we are. We are qualified to select books and we went to school for it. So we can continue to let these people tell us who we are. Let each of us show everyone and the world what we stand for. And Kamala said, we stand for freedom, opportunity, compassion, dignity, fairness, and endless possibilities. And I thought to myself, that sounds like a librarian job description, because that's exactly what we do. So I want to end by saying, vote like your library depends on it, because it does. And I have another book recommendation for you right here. Oh, right here. We Shall Not Be Denied. It comes out in September. You got to get it, put it in these kids' hands, and don't forget to read something, do something.
Thank you. I feel empowered already.
Now, we're having some problems with the chat. So as librarians, you know, we always adjust and shift. Go into the Q&A.
Yes. Put your
comments
questions in the Q&A.
and
Yes.
messages in there, because I've already looked in the Q&A and people have put book recommendations and comments in there. So please be sure and do that. Also, too, we have a hashtag School Librarians for Harris. This is important because when Corinthia and I first started putting this together, the public libraries were saying, well, what about us? I'm like, what about us? You know, school librarians have some very separate issues that we are dealing with that are very different, but sometimes similar from public librarians. We have, for once, have to do something that's on our own, and we need to capitalize on this. So that's one of the reasons why we jumped out here and we said, okay, we are going to really push this forward, that this is School Librarians for Kamala Harris. Now, we're going to move on in our presentation this evening. We have some more speakers coming up. Alyssa Malaspina, you're up next, and I'm going to make you a temporary host, and you can begin your presentation, and I want you to be all ears, everyone, to what Alyssa has to say.
I got to get my video working. It is.
There we go.
Gotcha. There I am. I am here. Hi, everybody. I'm gonna speak to you today about sort of my experience and why I will be voting. I don't know if you can see my shirt, but it is, I think this basically explains why I am voting, my shirt itself. But I want to talk to you guys today because I find it disheartening that I'm seeing a lot of pushback from school librarians about being political at all, or also just about anything related to politics. And it's scary to me because we are under attack. We are under attack and we cannot be silent any longer. We need to speak out. We need to talk about what is happening to us, and we need to vote. And we can't just be apolitical anymore. It's just not working. And so here's my little speech, but I want you to sort of know beforehand that that's sort of some of the things I'm thinking. As librarians, we understand the critical importance of knowledge, access, and the power of the written word. We are the guardians of information, and we play a crucial role in shaping the minds of future generations. In this pivotal election, and I cannot stress enough how pivotal this election is, we must consider candidates who not only understand our role as advocates for the values we hold dear: equity, education, and freedom to read. Today, I stand before you not just as a fellow librarian, but as someone who has experienced firsthand the consequences of standing up for these values. My journey has been both rewarding and at times deeply challenging. For years, I've dedicated myself to ensuring that our students have access to diverse books, stories that reflect their lives, their experiences, and their dreams. I fought for the inclusion of materials that encourage critical thinking, fostering empathy, and broadening perspectives as not only a school librarian, but also as a school board member. But this work has not come without a cost. Because of my desire to show that all students belong in the library and all viewpoints are important, I was fired from my position as a school librarian in New Jersey. And I say in New Jersey because that is very important. People think it's only in the South. It only happens there. No, it is happening in New Jersey. It is happening in a county that is one of the most blue counties in our state. It happened there. So it's happening everywhere. I was fired from my position for, as my principal said, having books that focus too much on LGBTQ plus and diversity. And I refused to back down in the face of the censorship. Even when the pressure was overwhelming, I was targeted not just professionally, but personally. I received death threats, threats aimed at silencing me, at intimidating me into abandoning the very principles that I believe in so deeply. These threats were terrifying, and they serve as a stark reminder of the dangerous path our country is on. We are living in a time when standing up for the right to read, for the right to access information freely, can make you a target. But these experiences have only strengthened my resolve. I refuse to be silenced, and I refuse to allow fear to dictate the future of our libraries and of our schools. My story is just one of many across the nation. Librarians, educators, and advocates are facing unprecedented challenges as we strive to protect the freedom to read and the integrity of our profession. In this climate, we need leaders who will stand with us, leaders who will understand the stakes and who will fight for the values we hold dear. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are those leaders. They have consistently demonstrated their commitment to the very principles that underpin our work: equity, education, and the freedom to read. They understand that education is the bedrock of a thriving democracy, and they have a proven track record of supporting policies that enhance access to quality education for all. Beyond their support for libraries and education, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz stand for something even more significant: the protection of democratic values. In a time where the freedom to read, to learn, and to think critically is under attack, we need leaders who will stand up against censorship and the erosion of our rights. They have both spoken out against book bans and the suppression of ideas, defending the right of every individual to have access to information freely. As librarians, we must use our voices not only to advocate for our profession, but also to advocate for leaders who will fight for the values we uphold. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are those leaders. They have shown us that they understand the importance of education and the value of libraries and the necessity for protecting the freedom of information. This election is not about choosing candidates. It's about choosing the future we want for our schools, our communities, and our country. It is about ensuring that every child has the opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive. It's about defending the freedom to read, to explore and discover new ideas. I urge you to consider the stakes of this election and to vote for Harris and Walz. They are the leaders who will champion our cause, who will stand up for our students, and will protect the values that we and who will protect the values that are at the heart of our work as librarians. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Alyssa.
you.
And many blessings to you, because I know that the last couple of months have been rough.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad to see that you're here and you've come through. So there is always light at the end of the tunnel, but it's always tough. But you know, we have a school community that is loving, and we all try and stand with one another. You know, just
I
like
appreciate that. I appreciate that. And just so everybody knows what she's talking about is because I was fired from the one position, I was the first one to be removed when another school board decided that they didn't need librarians. So
Wow.
this censorship has led to 2 positions being removed. Me from 2 positions. So this is an ongoing issue that we must address. And I highly recommend, I'm going to put a plug out there for the book that I'm a part of, which is Teaching from Centerville. Did I say that right? Or Trouble in Centerville? I always mess it up. But that's the name of my book. But it's an awesome book. I will put the link in there, but it really tells the history of what is happening to educators that have been through these issues, and has given and it gives a historical overview of how we have gotten to where we are, and gives viewpoints from a lot of different librarians and educators.
And that's important. We need to know the history before we move forward with advocacy and in that fight. So
Yeah,
yes.
and I like how you said we can't assume that you live in a blue state, that there's no censorship. That is not true.
Mhm.
Not true at all.
It's not true at all. So we can't take it for granted that we live in a blue state. Oh no, that stuff doesn't happen. Yes, it is. It is happening. There's a question that where can they purchase the t-shirt that you are wearing?
Oh, this t-shirt I got from a store in my town called Sadie's. I'll put the link on because you can find it online. And yes, it's a neighborhood store, and they donate money back to causes. So they do also have some KAMALA shirts that are all going to the cause too. So I will make sure to put the link in there so that you can get one for yourself.
Okay, good. Thank you. And Casey, due to the time, I'm going to pass on the slide for the books. I'll just put the link up in the chat so that everyone can find the resources for the book, so that we can have the next speaker.
Okay. Our next speaker, Latrice. Let's see, where are you? And Latrice, I'm going to give you the hosting privileges. So let's see. Miss Martin. So nice to meet your acquaintance.
Yes, Latrice. So
There
nice
we go. Okay. Hi, Latrice.
Hello.
Okay, you may begin, sweetheart.
So I am sharing my story of what happens when we don't have elected officials who are pro-education. So my story starts with me falling in love with the library as a math and science teacher a long time ago, and I was encouraged to go back to school to be a librarian. And the school district that I worked for at the time was going through budget cuts, and so I chose a different path. And then over 10 years later, I just couldn't get rid of that feeling that I belonged in the library. So as a recently divorced single mom, I put myself through school, paid cash, no loans, so that I could fulfill my dream of being a school librarian. I found a job at the most wonderful school, and it was a dream come true. And never in my lifetime did I think that I would ever have to leave that place. I had plans of retiring as a librarian at that school. It was a recently remodeled school, so I opened every single box of books and put every book on the shelf. So over 15,000 books were placed on the shelf by me. It took me from August to October, and I finally opened the library in October, and I welcomed a very diverse group of students, and life was great until it wasn't. And so we started having meetings about budget crisis in our district, but it was never brought up that the librarians would be touched. We were just encouraged to keep advocating and showing what we could do, and we were all doing that. My district sent brand new librarians to our Texas Library Association conference. They paid for us to go. And then a week later, they had us join a Zoom call where they told us that they would be getting rid of half of the librarians. I work in the third largest school district in Texas. It was a suburb of Houston where no one in the district and the community would have ever thought that librarians would have been on a chopping block. And so what ended up happening is a few days later, this was a Friday at 3 o'clock, we had a meeting being told that half of us would not get to return the next year as librarians. And then in the middle of that week, at about 10 o'clock at night, some of us got emails saying, you will not have a librarian position next year. You will be on an excess list, meaning whatever school can take you based on your certification, you are to go, or you resign. And what ends up happening in that situation is that a librarian who fell in love with elementary, but was a certified high school teacher, they lost their home. They fell in love with their school. They end up going back to high school where they have not been in 5 or so years. They chose the librarians who got to stay based on seniority. And in a district that just recently became more progressive, that means that the veteran librarians do not necessarily look like the students that they are serving. And so when I became a librarian, I was the third Black librarian in our district of 90 schools. And now there are no Black librarians in our school district. And a lot of the librarians of color are gone. They have resigned or they are back into the classroom. And so I am really expressing that when we don't choose people in the local levels who are pro-education, our board members are the ones who choose our superintendents. Our superintendents are the ones who get to decide who stays and who goes when we have budget crisis. And then when you are in a state that is holding money hostage for public education, we end up with a budget crisis that we never dreamed we would be in. And it is sad to know that school librarians could be the first ones to go in a situation when they're trying to save money. So I have cried probably weekly since May. I chose to stay on my campus where I am seeing another librarian work in our library. So right now our district has librarians working between 2 and 3 campuses, trying to serve students. Our schools are huge. We have, most schools are between 900 and 1500, about maybe 1200 sometimes. And that's just like elementary. Some of our schools are really, really overpopulated. And so it's very hard for them to service the teachers, the staff, the teachers, the staff, the students, and the community and meet all their needs between going back and forth between 2 schools. And so when Dr. Price asked me, I was like, what could I possibly share? What would I have of value considering I only had an opportunity to be a librarian for 1 year as a certified, librarian? And she said, your story is so important. And then I really thought about it, like, I am a result of elected officials who are not pro-education. And so it is so important that we back Harris and Walls because our country is in dire need of our students having the best education possible. It is a lack of proper history being taught, is a lack of resources being given to our students that continues to keep us where we are in education. And librarians are the hearts of the schools. We are the ones who provide the gateway to information freedom, and without us, our children truly suffer. There are studies that show that our test scores suffer because when school districts do not hire certified librarians. And so I am hoping to encourage you all to continue to advocate for each other. Right now, our community is now behind the school librarians, but they never knew that they needed to be because it was never thought of that we would not have a certified librarian in every school full time.
Wow,
Mm.
that was a lot.
Yes, it definitely was. Oh my goodness. That's hard to walk past your library every day, see someone else in there working, and you were the one who basically birthed that library and put every book on the shelf. God bless you, and just hang in there. I pray that you will get back in your library where
Yes,
you belong, where you belong.
yes, yes. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yes, thank you for coming in this evening. Okay. So we're going to move on. We have one more speaker that we would like to introduce you to, but we are going to share uh, just one more slide with you, a couple of more slides. These are books about the vice president. These are really helpful. These are books that you could be using your displays. Don't worry about doing a screenshot, and I shouldn't have said that earlier because
Yes.
what? You're going to get a wonderful link to a resource where all this information will be found. Okay. All right. So
Do something.
do something. It doesn't make any difference what language it is in. Do
Mm-hmm.
something. Do something. Do something. You want to take it away, Corinthian?
Yes. Hopefully I'll be able to play it. Can we play the
I'll
video a
play
little
it.
bit?
I'll play
Okay,
it.
you
Go ahead.
gotta play it. This is just a little clip of Michelle Obama at the
It's up
DNC
to us
convention.
to remember what Kamala's mother told her. Don't just sit around and complain. Do something.
Something.
So if they lie about her, and they will, we've got to do
Do
something.
something.
If we see a bad poll, and we will, we got to put down that phone and do something. If we start feeling tired, if we start feeling that dread creeping back in, we got to pick ourselves up, throw water on our face, and what?
That's it. Simply said, do
That's
something.
simply said. Michelle Obama said, just do something. Casey and we was having a conversation. I was like, Casey, I have this idea. You think we can pull it off? She was like, yes. We didn't need Michelle Obama to tell us to do something. We just went on ahead and did it. Yes, people have criticized us and within our profession, wanting to know why we're doing this. But if we don't start doing something, somebody else will start telling our story and it will be the different narrative.
And I'd like
Casey?
to say this too. You know, sometimes you might lose some friends along the way. Because
Yes.
as I pull Susan Polos up right now, you know, I got in a fight in the Facebook group. And guess what? I left the Facebook group, but I got the last word in. Okay.
Mm.
So sometimes you may have disagreements with people, you know, dealing with a difference of opinion about these topics. But you know what? It is what it is. And librarians should be on the front line of of defending the right to read and children's literacy. Because just like many of the speakers have said, this is crazy. Some of the things that we have seen with some of our colleagues and their behavior. I haven't seen anything like this before.
I
Never.
have not seen it either. And as I'm a school librarian also, and I'm also the CEO and founder of Workforce Career Readiness. And I have heard from colleagues of mine stating, why would you put yourself out there and ruin your business? I said, no, I'm not ruining my business. I will take a hit financially, but I have to stand on something. If you don't take a stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So it's time for us to get out of our comfort zone and go out there, start advocating and speaking out. We have to. If we don't, our profession is going to be demised.
Our very last speaker for this evening is our wonderful friend, Susan Polos, who has always been a great supporter and also motivator in the work that I have done. Susan, I have made you a host. The only thing you need to do is turn on your camera, turn on and unmute, and you can take it away.
There I am. Thank you.
All right.
Well, I hope you're as fired up as I am after listening to these amazing school librarians. I feel joy when I listen to Kamala Harris, and I feel joy and outrage when I listen to the people here talk about their experiences. So yesterday's New York Times front page news analysis said that the buzzkill reality is that victory is anything but assured. The website 538 has Harris up by 5 points, but Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden were both ahead by at least that in 2016 and 2020 after their conventions. Hillary Clinton lost and Joe Biden barely won. To be a school librarian is not just to be skilled in curating a collection, teaching media literacy, and collaborating with content teachers. It's also fighting for the job itself. Fighting threats to library funding and positions becomes like a second job. I know that most of you, like me, have written letters to newspapers, organized parent and community groups, addressed boards of education, and even protested with style on the steps of government offices like the boss librarian, or simply out in the streets like me. We school librarians are ideally positioned to take these advocacy skills and use them in support for Harris. We can write, we can speak out, we can campaign effectively on our own time, and we can get out the vote. We know that not all school librarians think like we do. Blocking some of these people on social media, as I admit I have done, isn't always the answer. We are a polarized country. We need to listen and thoughtfully respond because we who are here have the research. We have evidence-based arguments, and we can remain civil and centered as we point out what is absolutely obvious. So Michelle Obama, in her speech at the Democratic National Convention, referred to the Goldilocks syndrome. She said, we cannot afford to focus on anything we disagree with about this candidate. Don't most of us want peace, clean air, fair taxation, reproductive rights, and solutions for all of the issues that have plagued the country for years? Does any platform look exactly as it would if we had written it ourselves? It's like David Sedaris said about the election in 2008. Do you want the airplane chicken, or do you want a plate of shit with broken glass in it? There's a really clear choice here. If you don't hear your cause mentioned front and center, you cannot sit this out. We didn't have 5 years of the other candidate enough to know what it looks like, what it feels like, and we are not going back. I remember the election day of 2016. I happen to live in Westchester County, New York, where Hillary Clinton lives. She flew home that morning and landed around 4 a.m. at the Westchester airport. And my daughter and I went to the airport because it would be an historic day. We went to the elementary school in Chappaqua. We saw her vote. We voted. I felt a little twinge of anxiety, but everyone said, don't worry. The polls are clear. Hillary's going to win. And then that night I watched as state after state was called for the other candidate. It was devastating. I went to school the next morning and something terrifying had been unleashed. Students were telling other students to go back where they came from, build a wall. We have fortunately now had 4 years of a very different government, and it's been good, regardless of what the other side might say. And now, in Harris, we have an inspiring and exciting candidate. So, how can we take action over the next 2 short months to ensure that Harris is our next president? If you're working in a public school, you are likely the member of a union. I am a proud member of the New York State Union of Teachers, and for many years, I was a union rep. I spoke for school librarians at the state level, and like Corinthia, I served on the Regents Advisory Board trying to make political leaders aware of our value and our work. We know what the other side thinks about unions. Less than 2 weeks ago, Trump and Elon Musk had a conversation over X wherein they both celebrated firing workers on strike. Trump is not a labor-friendly candidate. The United Auto Workers filed federal labor charges against Trump and Musk because it is illegal to threaten to fire workers who strike. It's hard to believe that there is support for two billionaires who wield their power like weapons against ordinary people trying to feed their families. Harris, speaking to the American Federation of Teachers a month ago in Houston, highlighted some education issues: student loan forgiveness, protecting students from gun violence, and resisting Republican attempts to restrict curriculum. While you teach students about our nation's past, these extremists attack the freedom to learn and acknowledge our nation's true and full history, Harris said to applause and cheers, including book bans in the year of our Lord 2024. Do I always agree with the union? No. At the local level, I have felt undermined, I have been angry, and yet I support the union. I have a pension and medical benefits as a retiree, and I am thankful to the union workers who negotiated this, grateful to those who stand together and represent. Like Alyssa and Latrice, I lost my position. I was working in a Title I dual language elementary school. There was a budget crisis. I was unmandated. And now I work in an independent school. It's well-resourced. It's a terrific place to work, but I wouldn't be financially stable without the pension from my public school years. We are stronger together in unions, and politicians know that. Trump wants to weaken unions. Harris, on the other hand, led a task force examining the ways that the government can promote union organizing and regularly meets with labor organizers and leaders, along with President Biden. Harris's choice of vice president shines a light on her comfort with unions. As governor, Tim Walz introduced the Due North education plan, which required that a racial lens be placed on all curriculums, including math and science. The plan established a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Center at the Minnesota Department of Education in order to address systemic racism. The plan was approved when Democrats took control of the state in 2022. Walz is a member of a teachers union, and he, like me, is able to make ends meet because of his pension. If you are a member of a union, your union is one source of action offering opportunities for phone banks and canvassing. If you are not a union member, reach out to your local Democratic committee. There you can also sign up for door-to-door opportunities or phone banks. You are only given registered Democrats to call on. You may run into some apathy, but you won't be faced with hostility. Canvassing reminds people that every vote counts. If Democrats vote, Democrats win. We outnumber the other party, but if people stay home, we can't win. We must be sure that voters have rights to vote, absentee ballots, and that we register anyone not yet registered. The League of Women Voters has been working hard on that. Another resource is Indivisible, an organization that started after 2016 to resist and defeat Trump and to reclaim patriotism, which he seemed to ironically want to own. Go to indivisible.org and search for your local group. Indivisible is targeting congressional districts like mine, a gerrymandered district that voted for a Republican congressman, but also voted for Biden. The thinking is that this is low-hanging fruit and that we can turn Congress blue if we target well. It matters because once you get somebody out to vote Democrat, they will likely vote up ballot or down ballot for other Democrats. We need the Senate to stay blue. We need Congress, in the best scenario, to turn blue. We must try. If you live in a part of the country that is already blue, you can work for a state that you might flip. The Electoral College is everything. We know that Hillary and Gore before her won the popular vote, but still lost the election. In 2016, Trump won swing state Michigan by less than 10,000 votes. I live in New York. I can get to Pennsylvania. I can work for Georgia or North Carolina. What state might you work to flip? A resource that I love is Vote Save America, votesaveamerica.com, an offshoot of Pod Save America podcast. I signed up there on Team East. They have set it up like a summer camp color war. They describe this as an alternative to screaming into the void. You can see that there are 8 battleground states, but also 38 House targets, 7 Senate targets, and other targets as well for governor, state Supreme Court, ballots, state legislature. You plug your zip code in and click to see how to help. Choose your own adventure. We have 71 days. A lot will happen. We will face lies and disasters and challenges to voting. We must unify and work like our lives and the lives of our students depend upon it, because they do. Thank you.
Ooh, 71 days. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you for that powerful ending. 71 days. Let's get to getting. Thank you so much, Susan, for that presentation.
So as we close out, I want you to get your cameras out because there is a URL. There's a tiny URL that I want you all to capture. If you go to tiny URL, Harris for SL resources. This is school librarian resources. That's what that means. You can find the book list, voting resources, get involved, and contact information. It's your own go-to for school librarians. This is valuable. Make sure that you screenshot, make sure that you take a picture of this page and share it widely in your groups, because this is going to be imperative as we get the word out, especially as we are teaching our young children in class and getting them involved in this entire process of the voting process this year. Kids are going to have a lot of questions, so
Yes.
why not be prepared and have the resources
took-
ready for them so that they can understand and be informed. Corinthia, did you want to close out with any additional comments?
Yes, and there's a toolkit with sample lesson plans, like I discussed earlier, that you can use. You can adapt it to your grade level and to your library. And these toolkit and lesson plans will help you teach students about the election process and voting process as well.
So I know we ran a little over. Well, we thank you for your patience. We also thank you for your patience with the chat as well. Zoom is a little crazy tonight. We are very happy that you came in tonight. And let's remember the memory of Kamala Harris's late mother when she said, do something. We all can do something. It could be quiet. It could be very much out front and loud, but we need to all do something. We are librarians. We are great, and we can really be a driving force in this election. I want to say thank you so much for coming this evening, and please spread the word. There will be a recording. We were able to record this, and I'm going to post it on my Boss Librarian Facebook page. So it will be on my Boss Librarian Facebook page. Also, don't forget, use the hashtag School Librarians for Harris when you're posting to support, because the Harris campaign is paying attention. We're a very unusual group that's supporting her. So please be sure and do this. So again, everyone, thank you so much for coming.
You.
I'm going to leave
let
this
that hashtag be trending. Let it be trending on Twitter, Facebook. Just use that hashtag and just go out there and do something. If you're writing postcards, if you're knocking on doors, even if you want to get out the house, you can be on the phone bank. Just go out there and do something. Advocate for our profession like it's the last day on earth.
So I'm gonna leave the screen up. Thank you so much for coming. Have a good evening.
Thank you.